Hello, and welcome to this episode of DOTVPodcast Presents D&D Me, Episode 7. Tonight, it is literally, as the title states, D&D and me, Ron. So, instead of continuing on with the exploits of Fluto and Pix and doing the solo adventurers toolbox stuff, I thought we might instead dig into a little bit of the lore of Swashbuckler series, some of the background stuff that we haven't really been able to get into in game. So with that, why don't we fade to a scene. Okay. So yes, as I stated this evening, it is just you and I, viewer. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Seas of Vodari campaign setting. Let's flip our screen here. There we are. Of course, we all recognize this wonderful world map. It is quite lovely. I do enjoy it immensely. So, why don't we... Let's see, where would be a good spot to begin here? So, we've already established that this is a different world than where our main campaign takes place. Or is it? I don't know, maybe it's just on the other side. Who knows, right? Either way, from a regional standpoint, one of the things that I immediately established was so this campaign has its own deities and religious structure, and to avoid confusion whether this is part of another world or not, my canon is that these are the same gods as what are known in the known realms, but they just go by different names. They have different symbology and stuff. They're essentially the same deity, just worshipped by different people in a different way, so it works. So why don't we get into the basic things here, the 6 things one should know about Vodari. So anyone visiting Vodari as a player or game master or as a spectator should know the following. If it exists in a typical fantasy world, it can exist in Vodari. Vodari has a place for all of the core elements of the world's most popular fantasy role-playing game. While it is a seafaring world full of islands, sea monsters, pirates, and endless ocean, heroes can still find dungeons, dragons, and other typical fantasy elements. Nevertheless, much of what is familiar had been altered, creating unexpected experiences for old and new players. You'll find dwarven shipbuilders, halfling floating cities, gnomes divided and on the brink of war, a goblin-kin civilization, and more. Secondly, Vodari is a dangerous place to explore. Adventurers in Vodari venture to port cities, treetop kingdoms, lost ruins, mountain fortresses, and more. While most nations in the southern islands live in a relative calm and peace, Vodari is perilous. Any voyage can go from routine to catastrophic, with wind, waves, and rain capable of sinking any ship. To the north are the harsh lands of the barbarians, orcs, giants, and other monsters. To the west are the wild and mysterious forests. In the east, the dwarves war with an enemy deep under their mountain realm. And on the southern seas, you'll find pirates, giant sea monsters, crime-filled ports, and countless unexplored islands. At the center of it all The wind, rain, and waves of Vesi's rage make travel anywhere nearby deadly. And you can see that just by looking at the map. So again, those areas to the north, so I'm sure popping up here to the north, these are the harsh lands of the barbarians, orcs, and giants, and etc. To the west, over here we've got the wilds, mysterious forests. In the east, there's dwarves underneath this mountain realm, and then to the south here is all the new unexplored stuff, and that's pretty much where we are in the Swashbuckler series, so it works out. Thirdly, Vodari is an ancient and broken world, so this is one of those aspects that we really haven't gotten into as far as the lore of this setting. Long ago, a vast continent called Veranu was annihilated in a war of the gods. This cataclysm created such destruction that all but the outer edge of the continent sank to the bottom of the sea. The devastation left only a scattered few to rebuild their civilization on the islands. Today, adventurers find a broken world full of the ruins of the world that once was. A massive storm still rages where the heart of the continent once existed. The storm is so powerful that only settlements protected by tall mountains or vast forests have survived its devastation over the centuries. So Lewis, I don't know if you're in here or not, but if you are, we got major lore dumps coming for you. Alright. Okay. Next. Vodari is a world caught in divine conflict. If anyone needed proof of divine beings, a war among the gods spilling over into the mortal world was the ultimate confirmation. Vodari was all but destroyed, and a raging storm hundreds of miles across appeared where the vast continent of Veranu once was. After fighting for millennia, the gods have struck an uneasy peace. To settle their quarrels, the gods of creation and destruction meddle and plot against each other, using mortals as pawns to suffer the consequences. 5. A world where magic is extraordinary. Yeah, this is something we touched on briefly, but in Vodari, magic is a mysterious force with much of the lore forgotten over the ages. Today, magic is found in powerful artifacts and in rare individuals who access magic through prayer, ancient knowledge, a pact, or a bloodline. Those with magical powers are exceptional. Schools that teach magic are rare, often available only to those of noble birth or obvious talent. Champions chosen by the gods and granted their divine gifts are special. The elite few who have access to powerful magic through artifacts with their abilities control much of Vodari. And finally, Vodari is a world of technological wonders. Powerful magic is unavailable to most people. In its place, ingenuity has led to the advancement of non-magical technology, providing wonders not found in a typical fantasy world. The Great Leap recently unleashed steam power, black powder, and other technology into the world, revolutionizing travel, manufacturing, and war. Alchemists continue to develop new metals and materials. While most people embrace these advancements, some factions oppose their use. Now, the actual history of the world, we're not going to get into all of those details because there are pages. Pages and pages. but we can probably get a little bit of a summary. So most of the ancient history of Vodari has been lost to the sea forever. So that's something we have going for us as far as lore dumping goes. Don't have to get into a whole lot of detail there. The history, though, as written, does begin with the Age of the Gods. Very few texts exist, so we're not going to get into those details because that's not going to be something that most common folk in Vodari would be aware of. And all people, of Vodari have a story about the world's beginnings, but there are many different variations and no definitive story. So really all that we have is just one version anyways. Now, there was a cataclysm somewhere in there, and then we come into the Lost Ages. So this is more myth and legend. The first people of Vodari were the mysterious ancients, creating a vast civilization found above and below the waves. Thousands of generations ago. Let's see. The peoples of Varanu showed up in the western forests. Because of the human empires, and then a god war, the world rebuilt. And now we kind of get into modern history. So this is stuff we're going to want to go over. There are few historical records from the time immediately after the cataclysm. With civilization lost, the scattered people who remained struggled to survive. Many died from famine, monsters, disease, and war in the following decades. Knowledge of magic, the gods, and technology entered a dark age, with each seen as being responsible for the god war. The god war caused a great cataclysm across the world, which caused the seas to rise and mountains to fall, and that's what destroyed the continent of Varanu, leaving Vesi's rage in its wake, leaving us with our current map. As you can see here, boom, boom, boom. So, all that stuff happened. Knowledge of magic, the gods, and technology enters a dark age, with each being seen as responsible for this crap. In the west, those elves who climbed the tallest trees survived. The Mournder dwarves, whom had already closed themselves off to fight their night war underground, they had suffered the least of any people. The Draga, Dragonborn, were all but lost. Surviving orcs and giants settled in the harsh north. Kobolds and goblinoids scratched out a living wherever they could, but were often excluded by the more civilized, quote, people. There's still a lot of latent racism in this campaign setting. The majority of the survivors were a mix of human, halfling, dwarf, gnome, and elf sailors who landed wherever they could find solid ground. Most survivors lived as nomadic reavers under petty tyrants, while most people struggled to survive in darkness. Taro's light shined on a few, and Taro, as we will get into shortly, is one of the deities of this world. My apologies. Alright, a new history begins. The first signs of civilization re-emerging were in scattered tribes that embraced their diversity. These communities of people from every corner of the former continent burned bright in the darkness. Humans, elves, halflings, dwarves, and gnomes worked together to rebuild the world that was lost. The scattered settlements of the southern islands grew into successful fishing and farming communities. Their homes were protected by mountains and forests from the raging storm to the north. They built walls to defend themselves, grew crops, and raised livestock. I apologize for my asshole neighbor if you hear that background noise. As trade was established, conflicts for rare and busy ports emerged. While many in the south thrived, those in the north barely survived. In lands once known as Verdun, only those tribes that worked together survived the harsh climate and fought off orc bands and giant raiders. In the forest realm to the west, the elves re-established their lost kingdoms and slowly returned to their traditions and way of life. In the 5 centuries since the Cataclysm, the southern islands had grown into seafaring nations that sent hundreds of ships out into the seas to trade with each other. As civilizations and communications continued to advance, much of the past knowledge of magic and technology was reclaimed. Historic events once again began to be recorded in detail. As the darkest times began to fade into memory, scholars hunted for knowledge of the past. An age of discovery was about to begin. The Age of Discovery. As Vodari approached its 6th century since the Cataclysm, intellectuals across the southern islands experienced a great leap. Over 50 years, there was a burst of discovery and rediscovery in alchemy, magic, metallurgy, shipbuilding, and navigation. The southern nations now had the technology to sail into the open ocean, far from the safety of land. They also rediscovered black powder, drastically changing naval warfare. Agricultural improvements allowed population levels to rise rapidly using higher yields and less labor-intensive farming methods. With new islands being discovered, powerful weapons, and enough people to settle them, the race to colonize had begun. Explorers from every nation sailed for profit, knowledge, duty, fame, honor, or faith. The edge of the map was pushed farther and farther each decade. As each of the nations explored the seas and founded colonies, they also found new foods, medicines, spices, dyes, treasure, and more. The southern nations colonized the islands to their south, southeast, and west, into the islands of the forest realm. The Silvari elves ended their practice of isolation to defend the seas surrounding their forest homes. They started limited trade with their neighbors to the east and created their own powerful navy, establishing outposts on neighboring islands. The Mornder dwarves took to the seas in iron-sided ships to trade silver and gems for any resource that would aid their war effort. Thurn dwarves from the southern nations grouped up to fund and establish colonies to the northeast in the Marathi archipelago, close to the location of their lost kingdom. Far to the north, the barbarian tribes raided and settled the surrounding islands when they were not at war with orcs, giants, and each other. This leads to war on the seas. So as trade and colonization increased, so did competition over both. Every small skirmish threatened to explode into all-out war. The cooperation between the people of the southern islands only a few centuries earlier was a distant memory. By the mid-7th century AG, after God War, a series of skirmishes over settlement of colonies and control of trade routes erupted into full-scale war. Alliances were made and broken between the elves of Silvari, the 5 southern nations, and the dwarves of Thurn and Morndurn. Every nation was at war with at least one former ally. Trade disputes and embargoes stalled trade, colonies rebelled, and widespread smuggling and piracy emerged. Colonies were invaded, ports were bombarded, and massive navies clashed. Decades of war had taken a heavy toll on the navies and economies of all the nations and provided no clear winner. A restless peace was established in Silvari, the southern nations, Thurn, and Morndurn all began to rebuild. But this led to the rise of pirates. With no appetite for another expensive war, nations looked to alternatives to protect their interests and punish their enemies. Spies and privateers had been used during the wars, and both remained popular ways to engage rival nations and avoid outright war. Privateering proved lucrative for both the privateers and the governments. Privateers received charters from their nation to raid the colonies and ships of rival nations to recoup losses incurred during the war. As entire fleets of privateers started to hunt the seas, the line between privateer and pirate was blurred. Some kept to a code, while others were no better than the reavers who plagued the seas after the cataclysm. Well, maybe get into that another time. In 687 AG, the theocracy of Tevera declared war on all pirates, including chartered privateers. Bowing to pressure from Tevera and wanting to avoid a new war, the other nations ended or limited their use of privateers. This left thousands of privateers from across the seas without work and labeled as pirates to be hanged if caught. So yes, in case you are wondering, there is definitely a penalty for our captured shipmates. A former privateer named Esmeralda rallied the pirates under the promise of establishing a pirate nation free of colonial tyranny. The pirates declared war against the world. With a massive navy flying a single pirate flag, Esmeralda was crowned pirate queen, and her captains seized an entire archipelago of colonies from the weakened southern nations. In a matter of weeks, however, the pirate brethren broke into rival factions. Esmeralda was nearly assassinated during a failed coup. The promise of a free pirate nation never emerged, and most of the pirate islands descended into lawlessness, as you would expect them to. Which brings us to the world today. So currently in our campaign, new fact being established, in case, I know it hasn't been. It is now the year 696 AG, after God War, and the nations of Vodari have enjoyed nearly a decade of tense peace. At any time, a simple trade dispute or privateering raid could tip the scales and result in renewed war. Every port city is home to diplomats, spies, and assassins of rival nations. While the nations are at peace, relations between them are far from friendly. Oh, pardon me one sec. Sorry, I had to sneeze. Okay. Most civilized people of Vodari fare worse than before the wars. Guilds run the technocracy of Zoleni, seeking profit above all else. In Zavros, the royal line has all but ended and criminal syndicates dominate the island. Tevera has become a strict theocracy under the archpriest's control. In Arushi, the nobility live in decadence, but commoners face disease and starvation. Ruthless merchant families govern Varachi, with a queen only in name. The Pirate Isles are barely held together by the Pirate Queen, and its raiders are a major challenge to shipping. The majority of the colonies have been in disarray since the wars, with most in some form of open revolt, under martial law, or abandoned to face raiders and monsters alone. After decades of fighting wars above and below the surface, the people of Morndorn now face losing to the enemy below, or a mass exodus. The Silvari elves came out of the war relatively unscathed, but continue to live under the rigid rule of their king. Traveling Vodari's seas is as dangerous and exciting as ever. The Knights of Tevera hunt the seas for pirates, privateers, or anyone else they consider an enemy. I need to keep that little tidbit in mind. Explorers from every corner of Vodari search for uncharted islands and the knowledge and wealth they provide. Pirates, raiders, and a select few privateers can be found hunting ships in any sea, and even the most routine voyage is under the threat from sea monster attack or nature's wrath. The next section is religion in Vodari. And yeah, so like most D&D settings, it's not really, it's not a, we can go over this because this is just a quick little summary. So religious beliefs in Vodari flow like the tide, some violent and destructive, smoking with sacrifice, and some sun-kissed and gentle, warm with the touch of joined hands. How sweet. While clerics and paladins often choose to revere a specific deity, many inhabitants of Vodari pray based on their circumstances. So, Vodarans pray to Tarot for good health, to Fortana for luck in a game of chance, to Ereko for favorable winds, or to Murda for safe passage into the afterlife. The people balance their worship by building shrines and temples to benevolent gods such as Toamna and Tarot, and making sacrifices to appease destructive deities like Vulcan. Not Vulcan, Vulcan. It's not the same, I promise. Temples and the priests who run them provide blessings, celebrations, and ceremonies of all kinds, and even sanctuary to those who need safe harbor. Even with the circumstantial nature of prayer and Vodarians will often find themselves praying to one or two gods more often than others, and in those cases a relationship begins to build, a closeness forms, and worship becomes less occasional, more personal. Each god has a preferred avatar, and some say that the avatars indicate a preference, a chosen people or profession of Vodarians who are most beloved. Dragonborn, for example, have a long history of worshipping Vulcan, who often appears as one of their own, or in the form of a fire-breathing red dragon. Halfling farmers consider themselves beloved of Toamna, while halfling adventurers often declare themselves chosen of Fortana. There are many living Vodarians who have seen the gods, or at least their avatars. For those who have not seen a god with their own eyes or heard a first or second-hand account from someone who has, Vesi's rage itself is present in their world, a tempest that roils with divine energies beyond the normal features of nature. For most, the prevailing opinion is that the gods are real, but there are dissenters and even the odd atheist philosophers, though even they are blessed by Istoro, who grins behind his hand when he favors them. So we don't need to get into the deities of Vodari. There's, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. They've got 18 deities here. And like I stated, earlier, I consider them, cross-platform, essentially, for lack of a better term. How's everyone tonight? In here. Nope, guess we're gonna be quiet. That's alright, I can bring up. That's fine. Alright, so deities, we don't need to get into all the deities. The symbols are different than what you find, like if you were Forgotten Realms, for example, Greyhawk, or what have you. I know, like, Paylor is typically like a sun, and god that would be about the equivalent of Paylor in this setting would be Tarot, the god of light, love, and healing, whose symbol is a rising sun. So, yeah. Crisscross. So some of these deities are credited as being creators, some are preservers, and then there are destroyers. There's the Seas Beyond, which is essentially going into the afterlife. That's fun. Life in Vodari. So, Vodari is a world of extremes where great beauty and terrible destruction clash. We haven't really seen too much of that. We've seen a lot of the beauty. We've seen some very beautiful locales so far. the moon and tides in some ways. Vodari is similar to our own world. We're not really gonna focus too much on all that. There are months. The months have names. We don't need to get into that either. It's confusing. There's 7 days in a week, and there's some months with 30 and some months with 31. Each is associated with a season and a holiday. And the days of the week all have names as well. Let's see, something that might come up, because I do believe that Lewis took this as an option, is a language called Shanty Speak. It's a new language exclusive to this setting. Oop. I can turn down the tavern. Probably bring it to there, thank you. Yeah, so Shanty Speak is a new language exclusive to, well, I don't want to say exclusive, other things might use it. And but it's introduced to me in this campaign setting. So Shanty Speak is this language originated as a secret language used by pirates and smugglers. Language is a mix of slang and code words mixed with common, infernal, and goblin to hide the true nature of a conversation. Some of the most common slang used in Shanty Speak has come into common use by the lower classes found in port cities. So it's kind of a slang. It's similar to Thieves' Cant. It's its own language. The currency is the same. It's the same rate for, switching out currencies. Coins have names, though. Coins are referred to as, so you have copper pieces, which are called fins. F-I-N, fin. Silvers are called shells, gold pieces are called crowns, and platinum pieces are called krakens. And they all vary too, depending on which country you are in Vodari. So in Vodari, the coins are now found in wide circulation. Different countries mint their own coins. Banks often use paper notes for large amounts. So while you will find variations in the size, shape, weight, and symbol stamped on coins from country to country, the exchange rates are the same everywhere. Most coins you'll find the portrait of a ruler or national emblem on the back and unique imagery for each denomination on the front. Electrum coins have never been minted in Vodari, so we can just cut those bitches right out. I think we might have found some Electrum pieces as loot in D&D Me. We'll just have to retcon that. But yes, fins. Copper coins that depict a fish or another swimming creature, such as a dolphin, on the front. Fins are the lowest denomination of coins, widely used for day-to-day transactions by the common folk. Shells. Silver coins traditionally have a shell on the front, harkening back to when shells were used as currency centuries ago. The coin is worth what an unskilled laborer can expect to earn for half a day's work. Crowns. Golden coins depict a crown on the front. The coin is worth what a skilled artisan can expect to earn for a day's work. Crowns are the standard unit of measure for wealth, even if gold coins are not the most commonly used. And then, of course, Kraken's platinum coins are used by the wealthy, not widely circulated. There are a number of stories explaining why the Kraken appears on its front. The wildest stories involve the Kraken as a symbol of an elite secret society that rules the world from the shadows. Oh, education. You're gonna want some of that paper money. Education. For most, some form of education is available in the southern islands and most of the colonies, but only the wealthy can afford to attend private schools or hire tutors. There are other options. In major settlements, Istori temple schools provide free basic education to any child. While education is not mandatory, most children in cities and towns complete at least a few years of schooling, resulting in well over half the population being literate. In rural areas, education is far less prevalent, with only nobles and the most promising students sent away for schooling. There are a number of institutions that offer higher education. The Zoleni University, Valledo College, and the Cathedral of Teva in Crownport are the most prominent. Silvari elves take education very seriously, with students in all disciplines training for decades. The dwarves have their own system of schooling, but it is clan-based and more specialized. In Norda, the population is generally uneducated and illiterate, but the wealthiest hire foreign tutors from Silvari and the southern nations. Where is Norda? Let's take a peek here. Norda, up right here. So yeah, this is just north of the elves and the wilds, that area. Oh, magic. As stated previously, magic is a mysterious force with much of the knowledge about it forgotten over the ages. Discoveries from before the God War have provided new understanding of magic and powerful relics whose creation is beyond the most powerful alive today. The elite few who draw on these energies control much of Vodari. Even those with limited magical power can always find work as a ship's mage. The path taken to harness nature's magical power can vary widely. Few are accepted for training in the arcane arts. Those who show great aptitude for magic are usually taken on as an apprentice by a wizard. In the largest cities of Vodari, schools run by the Arcane Council are available for the wealthy who can afford them, and talented youths who are recruited. That's not really going to apply to us too much, so that's the basics of the world. So we've got our deity structure, which mirrors any other deity structure, they just go by different names. Low magic, high technology. We're using black powder. Kind of steampunk, almost. We could almost go steampunk with this. So we know a little bit about... let's take a look here. We've talked about the southern nations a little bit. That features Arushi and the city of Arula, where Traxador's adventure, quote, began out of, as a member of the Arula Navy, Arushi Navy. Would it be named after the nation or the city? Either way. He was part of that. We talked a little bit about that region. We know that it is ruled by King Felix III, and the city exports fine artists, artistic supplies and products, high-end parchment, wine, and exotic meat, with the major languages being Common and Elvish. The royal family, of course, being the power group within the city. There is another major city on the island called Mary, M-E-R-I, Mary. And this city is the capital of the art world, so that's where all the artists are coming up with all their stuff on Arula, Arushi. We mentioned Tevera and Crownport. mainly because of the Theocrats. So they are the pirate hunters. That's something that might come into play at some point. Who knows? We've already got some pirate hunters going on, kind of. Varachi. Well, I don't want to give away too much for the story, so we won't get into that lore too much. Okay, here we go. Nope, that's the Pirate Isles. We're not going to talk about those either. So, although we are pirates. Alright, the faraway island chain where we currently are. You've spent a week of downtime here, so I think it's safe for Lewis, the player, to know more about. He would have kind of picked up on some of these things. A faraway chain where we currently are. We are in the capital of Sandport. It is mostly human, with dwarves being the next majority, followed by halflings, gnomes, elves, and other, ruled by Governor Andrew Tarso, though you don't really know too much about this fellow. What we do know... Yeah, you didn't really hear too much about him. Glassware, meat, produce, grain, tea, and timber are the major exports of the faraway chain. So not just Sandport, but essentially all of the islands in this chain, which would include Hemlock, our destination. Faraway is the main island. Far from the populated islands to the west, the chain is known for its sandy white shores. The islands are found at a trade crossroads between the Marathi archipelago and the southern nations. The islands were colonized by Varachi merchant houses to capitalize on their important location on eastern trade routes and the ideal climate for plantations. Faraway is the main island in this chain, and the town of Seaport, why do they call it a town? It's a city, is an important trade hub. Artisanal glasswares and stained glass windows from Sandport are all the rage among the nobility and the wealthy. The other 4 largest islands in the chain are named after the most powerful Varachi merchant houses. The island chain is generally well administered, rife with colonists who are happy to get rich by keeping strong ties to Varachi and its powerful merchant houses. In addition to glass blowing, the faraway chain is known for one other unique export: a delicious fruit called the dragon pear, which only grows here. And we've familiarized ourselves with the Avenue of Glass. That is the section of Sandport that hosts the most of the glass-blowing artisans and their suppliers. We might not have mentioned the Breakers. North of Sandport, along the coast, there lies a stretch of the island where steep mountainsides slide directly into the sea. The waves break violently here at all hours of the day and night, making the passage extremely dangerous for anyone exploring on foot. Signs are posted forbidding travelers from proceeding, but every year a few foolish souls die as a result of bravado and dares. Beyond the breakers, up in the mountainside, there is a series of deep caves. The Fish Bowl, in the busiest, richest part of Sandport, sits the most popular eating and drinking establishment and the city's top tourist attraction. We've been there once too, or maybe twice. And that's really all the detail that they really go into concerning that island chain. Which is fine. They leave the rest up to interpretation, which things have been interpreted. Let's see if there's any other lore that we really need to touch upon here. You go more into the geography, which we don't really worry too much about that, at least for other areas. We're not going to worry about that. Next we get into the people of Vodari, which is basically your character options and whatnot. So yeah, I guess that is about it we have for extra lore concerning the Swashbuckler series campaign setting that we are using, the Seas of Vodari. We've got some new creatures that we're going to hopefully introduce soon when we get into that sort of, when we get into those things. And yeah, I think that's about it for that part. So, I think we are going to take ourselves a short little break here. Go get yourself a snack. Use the restroom if you need to. And when we come back, we'll do a little bit of character building and play around with some options there. I recently added a new book to my collection on Roll20, which I don't know how it's going to affect character options, but we'll see. We'll take a peek. But alright, we'll be back in a few. And welcome back. Let me bring back our tavern music. There we go. Excellent. Alright, so as previously stated, we've already kind of gone over the extra lore that wasn't really necessary, but still good to have it. We've gone over that, so now let's work on some characters. So, we've got this here called copy of the character template. Character template here. The reason I use this instead of just hitting click new is because this has a few things built into it already, as far as here, let me show you on Fluto, for example. Guess I'd have to bring them out, wouldn't I? See, we have all these cool little buttons up here because it's based off of that thing. Alright. Use the Character Mancer. I love the Character Mancer. Character Mancer is great. Gives you all sorts of options. And depending on how many books you have or whoever's game you are in, you've got probably more options than I do. Alright, let's see. I don't know how many races there are here. No, we're not going to do that. That's not a race. That's like a template. Owlin. Let's do that. We'll do an Owlin. Why not? That one's new. That's from the Strixhaven book. One of my more recent editions. So let's see. Owlins get increased by 2 and increase different by 1, or increase 3 by 1. Okay. I have no idea what we're going to build here. Why don't we come back to that part? You are medium or small. You choose. Let's be small. I don't know why, but a small Owlin. That sounds perfect. Language proficiency is common and go with elf. Why not? And you have a flying speed equal to your walking speed. Okay, so here's another character that Ricky won't allow in the main game. We have dark vision, proficiency, and stealth. Alright. Now classes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 13 classes to choose from. Okay, Lewis, you want to roll a d13? Or anyone in the chat for that matter. Six, alright. So, that gives us a fighter. We are building a fighter, an Owlin fighter. A small Owlin fighter. Oh, I love it. Okay, why don't we go back to race then, real quick. I think we know what we're doing for ability scores. I think we're going Dex. Oh, I see how they're doing this. Alright. Increase 1 by 2 and increase a different by 1 more. Alright. I think that that works. So yeah, this little owlin is a fighter. I always come back for the skills. Let's see, so we can choose archery, blind fighting, defense, dueling, great weapon fighting, interception, protection, superior technique, thrown weapon fighting, two weapon fighting, or unarmed fighting. What's superior technique? Archery. It doesn't tell me what it is anyway, so. Alright, we'll go with archery. Gain a +2 bonus to attack rolls you make with ranged weapons. Yes, you can fly and shoot. As long as... So remember the armor thing. Can't use your flying speed if you're wearing medium or heavy armor. So we'll have to stay with light armor, but that's fine since we're going to be a dex-based fighter. And archery, yeah, it all works. Alright, we will roll some scores. Roll, we'll do the 46 drop lowest. And that is what it has given us. So 16, 15, 12, 15, 10, 11. Not too bad. So we want Dex and Con to be high. Dex is getting a +2. It should be the highest. Con getting a +1 there. Got another 15. Everyone always uses intelligence as a dump stat, but... Oh, wait. There we go. 12, 11, 10. We don't need to be strong. Yeah, I'll be a little more charismatic than wise. Next, the background for this owlin. Oh, we get some Strixhaven backgrounds. Let's see what these are. Lorehold student. No, I don't think that one's gonna fly. What else we got? We have Prismari student. These are all gonna be magic based now that I think about it. So we're probably gonna stay away from those. Well-being fighter. Could always go with the common knight or soldier background. If we're gonna be in Vodari though, might as well go with a sailor background. Makes things easy. We'll roll some traits. And let's see what we got here. Scroll up. Personality trait 1. I enjoy sailing into new ports and making new friends over a flagon of ale. Personality trait 2. I never pass up a friendly wager. Those are both great personality traits. Ideal. Freedom. The sea is freedom. The freedom to go anywhere and do anything. That's chaotic. We should maybe redo that since we're, what, lawful neutral? Let's re-roll that. People. I'm committed to my crewmates, not to ideals. Yeah, that works. Bond. Ruthless pirates murdered my captain and crewmates plundered our ship and left me to die. Vengeance will be mine. Watch out, Traxador. Flaw. Once someone questions my courage, I never back down no matter how dangerous the situation. These are all fun for an owl fighter, sailor, flying fighter thingy. Alright. Works for me. Always go with the class equipment. So chainmail or leather armor, longbow and arrows. We're doing the leather longbow and arrows. 2 of shield or any martial weapon. Well, we're not going shield. Can't really shoot a bow when you're got a shield going on there. Let's see. And we're not going to be... We're a dex-based fighter, so we're going to want finesse weapons. Probably... go with a rapier. And a dagger. Oh, they don't have dagger on there. Oh, because these are martial. It's a scimitar then. Light crossbow and crossbow bolts or hand axe. Well, I don't need the crossbow if I've got the longbow, so we'll go with the 2 hand axes. And an explorer's pack, because exploring. Oh, that also gave us athletics and perception, so now we gotta go back. Probably went back too far. There we go. Yeah, we have to go to class. And now we can pick our proficiencies. I'm actually going to give them history. Going to make intelligence not be a dump stat. And we'll give them some acrobatics too. Alright, that part looks good. Arcane is a mystery to you. No feats. That's fine. Let's see how it is. Oh, we need a name. Let's see if there's any suggestions in here. We got the dark vision, and they don't have any suggestions, so with that being the case, yes, we're gonna have to go find one of our random name generators, won't we? There we go. And let's see. I doubt they'll have owl names. How about bird names? Bird folk names. Close enough. Oh, this is terrible. Most of these are unpronounceable. I'll find one. I'll find a good one. Scoo! No. Hootie McHooter. No. Should have kept it. Scarrow. Ibit. 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 I like it. Ibit. That is your name. Bit. I mean, it doesn't have... They don't bother putting like height, weight, anything like that in there for the owl. They all in. I wonder, we could check the compendium. Yep, that checks out. Oh, they're saying use what you would for like a human in the PHP. Oh, come on. What, they don't have the thing? The table there, the dice? Roll on this. Oh, I guess not. I guess I'll have to go to the actual player's handbook then. Good thing I've got one right here. Okay. Height and race. Where is that part? It's not right at the front with the races where it should be, I know that. And that would make the most sense, would it not? Okay, here we go. Random height and weight generator, so this is, but it's a small human, so we can't go off a human. I guess we'll have to go off of... See, halfway is really small. We'll go off a gnome for base stats, how about that? That makes more sense. So plus 2d4 for the height. Got a 5, so 3'4" for our little owl in here. That was a 5, so then modifiers times 1, so 40 pounds. Light. Speed, dark vision, they don't really say anything about like eye color, feather color. We can worry about that stuff later. We'll just finish this, the main thing. Alright. So Ibit, not Ibit, Ibit. Ibit the Owlin. Yeah, it has. There we go. Not too shabby. Why don't we go ahead and... Because we all know that this will inevitably replace either Fluto or Pix as one of them falls in a future episode of D&D Me. So put on our other things too. We want our exhaustion tracking on. We want our rest button on. And now we can launch. And we learned that we can only go up one level at a time, or else the character mancer skips things. Now let's think about this. Would we, as far as multi-classing is concerned, I've always been more of like a purist, like sticking with one class and keeping to it, but if I'm going to multi-class, there's a reason for it. Or you know, it has to make sense within the narrative of the story. Like, you know, you wouldn't just wake up one day and all of a sudden, like, oh, I think I'm going to be a singer now, and multi-class into bard. There would have to be a reason for it, I think. I mean, yeah, it's your game, however you want to play it, I suppose. You can portray it more like a video game if you want, but you know, if you want to throw some realism in there, I'd like to have reasons for things. So there's not very many multi-classes that I can just be like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense for there to be no reason for it to happen. Except sorcerer. Sorcerer's like the only thing where it's like suddenly like something like wakes up inside you where I can like see that, be like, oh, I guess that makes sense. Either way, we're sticking with fighter, so let's roll, see what happens. Hey, we rolled the average, so we will keep that amount. We're not multi-classing, so we'll just hit next. So, fighter at second level, we get the action surge, which is a nifty little thing. It allows you to take one additional action on top of your regular action and a possible bonus action. Possible bonus action. Can't stress that enough. And really, that's about it. That's all that Ibit's gonna get for second level. And that's fine. Ibit's fine. Ibit'll deal. Ibit'll go ahead and level up to level 3. We'll go ahead, we'll roll for HP, come on. And we got the average again. Okay. But now we get to choose a martial archetype. Now we've already gone with the archery fighting style. We could stick with that. Go with Arcane Archer, mix some magic in with it. Or we do want to keep in mind that Ibit here is part of this campaign world, so magic is going to be more rare. Yeah, that probably makes the most sense. Going the Arcane Archer because he's not really... Let's take a peek at that. Let's see if it gives us any... Here we go. Yeah, it makes sense. Alright, we're going with it. Arcane Archer. So third level, you learn magical theory or some of the secrets of nature, typical for practitioners of this elven martial tradition. You choose to gain proficiency in either the Arcana or the Nature skill, and you choose to learn either the Prestidigitation or the Druidcraft cantrip. We'll go Nature and Druidcraft. I think that's more fitting. Third level. You learn to unleash special magical effects. Arcane Shot. see. Vanishing arrow. What about a bursting arrow? I'll take bursting arrow and nah. I'm dealing with that. The grasping arrow. Looks good. Alright, one more level to get Ibit up to speed. That's weird. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to change the fighting styles. Oh, do we go with a feat or an ASI? See if we have something good for being archery-like. Observant maybe. Piercer maybe. What's Piercer? Yeah. Let's see. I really thought there was something specific, like something, maybe, is it crossbow expert? No. What is that called? Where there's a feat for, it's not the elven accuracy, is it? No. At least I hope it's not. Mobile, moderately armored. Servant, orcish. Sharpshooter, I think that's it. Attacking at long range doesn't point blank. What's point blank? Point blank is not a regular feat. At least it's not available in my list here. But Sharpshooter works. Alright. Looks like Ibit is ready to go out into the great big world. Yeah. Alright. Well, I think that is all we are going to do tonight. And this was kind of impromptu, so tomorrow, join us at our regular time. That would be 9 p.m. Eastern for Defenders of the Veil episode 7. Episode 6, last week's episode of the podcast. What's that perception skill to get? Oh, okay. But yeah, so last week's episode, Defenders of the Veil, will be available for your listening pleasure in just a few hours, actually. You'll be able to download that and relive it before hopefully getting back into the swing of whatever's going on in Ricky's crazy head. But yes, so thank you for joining us and sitting here with us tonight. We're gonna raid out, and next so tomorrow 9 p.m. Defenders of the Veil. Next Friday 9 p.m. should be Swashbuckler series, and next Sunday back at 7 p.m. we ought to be back to our regularly scheduled Dungeon of the Mad Mage campaign. Alright guys, alright guildies, thank you, we love you, have a good night.